You found an infographic in the wild that got you excited.
Yeah. So I
What
went
is
to a whiskey tasting festival in San Antonio, right?
how's your liver?
Oh, my liver is recovering, right? Welcome to the Cool Infographics Show, where we turn data into stories and visuals into communication. I'm Randy, and every week my co-host Jared and I will explore the art and science of infographics and data visualizations. We'll cover everything from viral charts to visual fails. Whether you're a designer, a data nerd, or just someone who likes good visuals, you're in the right place. Hey Jared, how are you doing this week?
Randy, I am good. You are never going to guess what I have to do this weekend.
I'm in suspense. Tell me, what are we doing this weekend?
Well, I will probably be drinking, but
Okay,
this
good.
time I will be drinking at a wedding because my cousin had the crazy idea to hire me as the wedding officiant.
Wait, you
Yes,
can do
that's
that?
right. Yes, yes. So I don't know if you know this or not, but you actually can go online and become a minister so that you can marry whoever you want. So I
Okay.
am an official minister of like the Unitarian Universalist Church of the internet. It's pretty incredible. So anybody need to be married? I definitely can do that for you.
You do this like
Um,
just for this weekend or what?
yes, just
Okay,
for this
that's
weekend.
awesome.
We're gonna see. We're gonna try it out, and it's gonna be great or not. I will tell you next week if it is.
Okay.
But that's what I'm doing this weekend. Never done it before. Should be a good time. But
Wow,
I
no
will
kidding.
promise to drink after
Hey,
I.
that's up to you. I mean, if it's
You know what?
gonna,
That's true.
a little courage or a little, calm your nerves.
To be fair, that Universalist Church is probably very forgiving of their, of their pastors or
Probably.
their ministers.
That's fantastic.
What
I'm sorry I'm gonna miss that.
Yes. And what makes it even better is, you know this, I live in Southern California, and I get to drive up to Fresno, California to help with this wedding.
So help
And
me out. Where's Fresno? I know
Fresno is,
you're in the LA area, so where is that
I'm in
compared
the
to
LA
here?
area. I'm right down the street from Disneyland for all you Disney fans. And Fresno is right smack dab in the middle in what we call the Central Valley, where the Central Valley is like the breadbasket of the country, where all the food is grown, most of the
Okay.
beef.
Yep.
It's the rural part of California that produces all of the food. So it's a 5.5 hour drive. Fun fact, I get to drive on Halloween, so it could be longer because getting out of LA on a Friday, especially when it's a kind of a
Just get
holiday, can
out of
be.
the LA traffic.
Yes, I need to get out of the LA traffic. And that's why
Yes.
you've tried to convince me to move out of California, but
Yeah, move
I
out
don't
of there. It's not worth that commute. It's not worth it.
know. Randy, what are we talking about today?
So today I found a new infographics in the wild, right? And so
Okay.
infographics in the wild, in my mind, are charts, maps, timelines, graphs that somebody has printed out or
Yes.
is on a screen somewhere and it's out there for the general public. It's not something that you have to find online or in social media, but it's actually out in the wild where every man will see it and come across it.
So if I am just walking in Disneyland and I see a sign that says bathrooms this way. Is that an infographic
Oh,
in the wild?
so it's a sign, it's an indicator, but it's not showing you any data. It's not trying to
Got
communicate
it.
any information. Now, the map at Disneyland is one of those things. That would be an infographic in the wild where it
I
gives you.
absolutely love that part of Disneyland, if I'm honest, to see
Yep.
where you are on the map and go, I
And
am
we should talk
here.
about that sometime, right? Because how many times
Yeah.
have they redesigned that map?
You found an infographic in the wild that got you excited.
Yeah. So I
What
went
is
to a whiskey tasting festival in San Antonio, right?
how's your liver?
Oh, my liver is recovering, right?
Okay,
But it was
good.
a whole lot of fun. And while I was there, I took this photo. And so I took this photo of the bourbon flavor wheel. And so this was on one of the tables. One of the distilleries had this. And it wasn't specifically about their whiskey. It was just for reference for people tasting whiskey to give you some
Yep.
ideas, right? And I don't, it's probably not as clear to be able to read that photo. There's glare on the glass,
So for our
right?
listeners who may be listening on podcast, can you describe what we're looking at right now? You said
Yes,
bourbon wheel. Like
it's
what
a
am I
wheel,
looking
right? So this is a round graphic. It's called a sunburst diagram or a sunburst chart, right?
at?
And
Okay.
it's divided up into different types of flavors. In fact, I'm going to show you one where I found this that was not my photo, but was actually the graphic that they framed.
Oh, that's pretty close. That's
Okay.
pretty close though.
So yeah,
Okay.
here's what they framed. They printed this off and just put it in a frame.
Yeah.
And so this is the bourbon flavor wheel, and it goes around the center. And we'll talk about what makes a sunburst diagram. But this,
Okay.
goes around in the middle between wood flavors and grain flavors and sweet flavors and spice flavors and then floral flavors. So there are these 5 categories. And then within each of those, it goes out to a second layer of the pie chart or the wheel, and gives you more flavors within the wood category or more flavors within the sweet category. And then goes out, in this particular design, goes out to a third layer and gives you very specific flavors that you might be tasting when you're tasting your whiskey. And for those of you
Got it.
not familiar with a sunburst chart or a sunburst diagram, this is meant to visualize data in this hierarchy. So the center piece are the main categories, and then it gets broken down further and further into smaller and smaller pieces the further out you go.
Got it. Got it. So the sunburst, I can see why someone would call this a sunburst, but to me it looks like a wheel. And for those of listeners that are that know Randy wrote a book called Cool Infographics, and I believe you have a sunburst chart on the cover of your book.
Yes,
Is that true?
it's another version of a sunburst. Yeah, it's a modified version, but it's that wheel graphic that's on the cover of the book.
Got it. Are there any other charts that some people mistake for sunbursts, but are not sunburst charts? Because I've seen a lot of circle type
Yes.
charts, not pie charts,
Right.
but other ones. I think one's called a rose chart.
Yeah, it's called a rose diagram, which is a different kind of chart that is not a sunburst.
Okay.
A rose diagram, it looks similar, right? So it's a circle and it has slices as you go around the circle. But in a rose diagram, every slice is exactly the same angle, right? So they're very equal angles as you go
Yes.
around, but they have different radius. So some of the slices are really big and stretch out,
Yep.
and some of them are really small. And so it's the radius of each of those slices that is based on whatever the data set is that you're visualizing. All right, so let me show you an example, right? So this is a rose diagram. This is one I designed for NASA a number of years
Got it.
ago. And so, like I said, you can see each pie slice is exactly the same angle, but they have a different radius depending on what the data values are, right? So 1,984 software usage agreements is a huge slice of this rose diagram. Where all the way down to the smallest one, 52, is a really small slice of the diagram, right? And so this is not a sunburst. This is a very different chart, actually invented by Florence Nightingale. And she invented this. And it's also called the
Interesting.
Nightingale chart. But yeah, so it's round, it's circle, it's visualizing things in these slices, but it is not a sunburst. It's very different from a sunburst diagram.
Got it. I really appreciate the subtle flex of, oh, this infographic that I designed for NASA back in the day.
Back in
Nice.
the day, back
Back
when
in the
NASA
day.
had budgeting and had money. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a soft subject. But another interesting thing that you brought up is I didn't know that Florence Nightingale invented this kind of infographic. Is there any particular reason why she felt a need to
He did at
invent
the time.
something?
All right. So yes, this was invented by Florence Nightingale. Let me show you hers. Looks like this.
Oh wow. Oh
Right?
wow.
And so now the intent of what she was trying to communicate
Huh.
was military deaths were mostly coming from diseases. So in
Wow.
this rose diagram, each pie slice is a month of the year. So there are 12 around the wheel. The red, kind of pinkish red in the middle, are
Yeah.
battlefield deaths. The black are just other causes of death. Could have been an accident, could have been old age, could
Yeah.
have been a heart attack, could have been, whatever. And then the giant part at the outside, the blue part of this, is diseases where soldiers and people in the military were dying each month due to diseases. And so she
Wow.
designed this to show we really need support and to really focus on disease prevention in the military. It's not the battles that are killing our soldiers.
Wow. Now, did it work? Did she get, because she visualized
Yes,
this?
I mean, you can see other people who that report on this and do videos about this one
Yeah.
because it's pretty famous. But yes, it worked. It actually was able to communicate her
Wow.
intent, which is we need help with diseases because it's just wiping out our soldiers.
Wow. And she did all this manually, probably with a protractor.
Exactly. This is drawn, hand drawn.
Yep.
Um, and again, this is a rose diagram. This is not a sunburst, which is sort of what we're talking about today. But this is what
Yep.
can be confused with a sunburst because it's similar, right? You see segments
Yeah.
being visualized on your way out the radius of these pie slices.
And to the layman, it feels like it's a bursting sun. I mean, it
Right.
just
But this,
it has that feeling,
this
even
one's
though.
just different.
Yep. Wow.
Okay.
Fascinating.
When I think of it, this is a pie chart on steroids, right? And so that's the
That's what a
intent of it.
sunburst is, a pie chart on steroids, if I
It's a
want to
pie
think of
chart
it.
on steroids, where it's really 3 pie charts or donut charts as you go
Yep.
farther and farther out. Generally, they're used to visualize actual data, actual numbers, where this one is not.
Got
If I
it.
show you one like this, right? So here's a sunburst of the population in Europe, right?
Yep.
And so the total population is the center of this sunburst. It's broken out into 4 categories: Eastern, Western, Northern, and Southern Europe. And you'll notice those are not equal slices as you go around the donut, right? Because the population in those 4 regions of Europe are not equal.
So when you show me this one, this makes me wonder if the original bourbon wheel that you found in the wild actually isn't correct data viz. It may be an interesting way to visualize communication, but this one, I understand. In Eastern Europe, the biggest country in Eastern Europe is, it's too small for me to read, but what is that?
Russia. Right? No,
Russia.
I can't read it either. Ukraine, Poland, maybe it is Russia. I don't. Why would they consider that to be Eastern Europe? But okay, I guess it's
Yeah.
not Asia, right? It's Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And
That
so
makes
yeah.
sense.
So anyway, the third lever of this is all the individual countries in those individual regions of Europe, and they're sized. The angle of that slice is sized based on the population of each of those countries.
And when we look at the bourbon wheel, if you can go back to the bourbon wheel, that's what's interesting.
This is the original tent of a sunburst, but they used a sunburst to organize information that's not numeric. There's no numeric data behind this.
Yeah.
It's a nice, compact way to show you here are all the things you could be tasting in this whiskey you're sampling. Right.
Got
and
it.
you ought to look at it and consider, am I tasting cedar or walnut or wheat or bread or toast or coffee? Right. And makes you think about the different things you could be tasting in these different categories.
And if I'm honest, this is much more appealing to look at, to try to identify and find things, rather than just a long list of what
it can
I
be.
could.
It would be like a long bullet list, right? You can imagine like a category, oak, and then subcategories of a bullet list, and it just goes down. This is easier, and obviously it fits on what is probably a poster or a piece of paper, better than a long bulleted list.
Yeah, and I still think that this is effective, because when you look at the inner wheel, you've got grain, and then from grain you go out to spicy and sweet, and from grain you go to rye, corn, wheat, and malt. I understand that all of those are under the grain category.
Right.
Even though there might not be a numerical order to them, there's obviously less of them than there are in the sweet category. So you've got more information that you have to visualize. Therefore, you've got smaller sections of the Sunburst chart under the sweet category versus the grain category.
Yeah. Going back to
Now,
your question, I don't
yeah.
think that one's more correct than the other.
Oh,
I
okay.
hate to say that one's correct and one's not correct. These are different use cases
Sure.
of a Sunburst chart. And this is perfectly valid use case, which is an organization of information versus a visual representation of data.
Got it. Got it. Is there, and because good data is thinking about an audience and displaying information in an informative and creative way
Right.
to get a point across.
So think about, and I made a sample here of an org chart. Right.
Okay. Wow.
So non-numeric data, it's just a hierarchy of information. If the center is like the CEO, and I don't know why it lost the CEO. I had it in there. So I would
We'll put it in
this.
post. Don't
We'll put
worry.
it in post.
Don't worry,
Right.
audience.
But it's broken out into the people that report to the CEO, right? So there's the VP
Right.
of sales on the right, and then the VP of operations, the VP of finance,
Yep.
and the VP of marketing. And then under each of those VPs, they have a department of people. And so it lists out which people report to each VP. We're not talking about numbers here. It's not like sized by their salary level or something like that. It's just an organization of hierarchical data. In this case, people reporting up through an org chart and where they, in which part, they report through.
Interesting. Interesting. Wow.
Versus what we were just talking about, like here's another one, which is COVID cases, across the world. There's a grand total in the center, continents are the next level, and then individual countries. And these, in case, is visualizing real data. So it's each country is sized based on how many COVID cases were reported in that country.
Got it. The only thing that's missing here is Antarctica's data. That's
So
probably
small.
a conspiracy.
Yeah, it's probably non-existent.
Excellent. Going back to the original infographic that you found, what can be improved on this that you think could make this better, or is this effective as is?
Well, number one, let me say it's pretty effective as is.
Okay.
But you can see, and we're really going to dive into some details here. You can see some choices the designer made. Now, knowing that a Sunburst chart is made to visualize data.
Yep.
This isn't. When you see slices that are larger, like malt, which is larger than wheat in the sweet category, which is in the grain category, it makes you think that's visualizing some data. Like, why is one bigger than the other? Right? If it's just trying to be indicative of these tastes, shouldn't they all be equal weighted because they're all possible flavors that you could be tasting?
Yep.
And some of these are this way because the designer chose those 5 categories in the middle. They wanted to be equal size. They have forced those categories to be equal. Therefore, there are a whole bunch more fruit flavors. And so all those fruit flavors are much smaller to fit them all in to that size of a pie slice.
Well, and I also noticed something else here too. We have 2 sweets on this visualization. You see a sweet as a main category, and then you see sweet as a subcategory.
Category of grain.
In 2 different distinct colors, which for the detail-oriented people among us, that is not only going to bother them, but but I think that goes back to the designer going, okay, this, instead of using, a different word to describe sweet. Now, if you were to give feedback here, would you say, yeah, you can have 2 sweets here and you can have different colors and they could be on different parts of this, or would you encourage them to use different descriptor so that you're
Let's use a
not
different
doubling.
descriptor because I think there is something to a sweet grain flavor, like a corn
Sure.
is a sweet grain flavor, which is very different than a sugar sweet, like a
Yep.
honey or a vanilla or a caramel. Those are sugar sweets, and that's the sweet category versus
Got it.
being a sweet type of grain. And
Oh,
so, yeah, I
interesting.
would name them differently. So they don't use the same word. Obviously, they're trying to make these as short as possible so that you can fit the
Absolutely.
text on the
Yep.
chart and still be able to read it. But I would change one of them to be like sugar sweet or candy sweet or something like that.
Yeah, and I also see spice and spicy, and so there can be better ways to describe this. But generally speaking, when you are creating data viz, that is almost a faux pas that you always want to have. If you have a color associated with a word, you always want to have that word and color associated together. Or am I just assuming incorrectly?
Oh, you'd want to do it the same, right? So if you say sweet, you want to mean sweet and not mean something different over in a different part of the chart.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay, good. So if you wanted to make this yourself,
Yes,
could you do it? And if
easily,
you could, how do could you
easily,
recreate the
easily.
sunburst?
So, a lot of data viz take special tools or are custom coded or programmed. This one is pretty easy because you can do it in Excel or PowerPoint. You can just create this. Um, and I've loaded this. I'll show you. So like here's what the data format looks like if you're trying to create a sunburst diagram. And so
Okay,
each
so
column,
if I want to do this at home and I'm like, you know what? I have got a lot of data.
yep,
I've got three to four columns of data.
yep,
I'm always going to either start with numbers or Excel or Google Sheets
and you
to
can
organize my data.
use the tool you've already got,
Absolutely. Okay. That makes sense.
right? But to make a sunburst, you have to organize your data in a very specific format.
Okay.
So these columns start with the inner level, level one. You go outward to
Yep.
level two and then out again to level three. You can go out as many ways as you want, right?
Yeah.
Or you could only have one or two levels. So this is the data for that whiskey or bourbon
Oh,
flavor
actually, that's a
barrel.
good question. Does a sunburst chart become not a sunburst chart if there are only two layers?
Oh, and absolutely not. You can have two layers.
Can you have one layer sunburst chart, or is that a donut chart?
That's a pie chart or a donut chart is just one layer.
Got it. Okay. So basically, we could look at a sunburst chart for the layperson out there and look at it as a multi-layered pie chart.
Yes. So the way this works is in that first level, for Excel to know that all these subcategories go into the bigger, higher level category, you have to spell it out each time in sequence. So you can't be jumping around. So, like, all the wood categories have to be together, right?
Got it.
And so, level one, I've got wood, I've got 6 steps. Level two, I have a couple oak, a couple wood, and a couple nuts. And the
Yep.
reason those are twos is because I have two very specific flavors for each one of those.
Got it.
And
Okay.
then the only values, you still have to have a value, is the value of the most outermost layer. Because Excel will add them up to make the lower, bigger layers on the inside of the sunburst
Well,
diagram.
will it always be a denominator of 100? Like it'll always go to 100%?
It'll add up all your values, and
Yep.
that will be the total circle. Whatever those
Okay,
values
got it.
are,
So
it'll add to the
it can
total
be
circle.
got it. So it could be 25. So it's not like I have 25 different um not columns, but
Categories.
categories. It's going to automatically calculate it for me rather than going, I need 3% here, 4% here, 5% here. It's going to do that for me. Got
It'll do
it.
that for you.
Okay.
And I don't have to put in here like how big is the wood category. Like I said, all I have to do is put the values on these tastes at the level 3, and it
Got it.
adds up how much does that make for level 1.
That makes sense.
So
Okay.
I've already built this. I like it better when everything is spelled out by row like this. You can skip and not have to repeat like the word would each row. So if you design your chart like this and your data table has all these blanks, it just assumes everything under wood is wood until you get to grain. And then it knows you've changed categories. I just find that when I'm looking at this here, this is easier for me just to look at which category I'm in and trying to figure it out. Okay, so I prefer viewing the data like this so that I can see what's in all the rows.
Yep.
Excel will understand it if you do it this way and don't repeat the higher level categories, but I just find it's easier to look at the data and know where I am. So to make this chart in Excel, I'd highlight, not there, start up in the corner. Here we go, right? Highlight all my data.
Yep.
I go to the insert ribbon. There's a category of charts here called hierarchy charts that has a tree map and the sunburst. And I'll make a sunburst.
Wow. Does it always have tree map and sunburst, or did you have to program that?
No,
it always does.
That's by default. It's got those built in.
Got it. Okay.
Now, let me make this bigger so you can see it.
Wow.
Right. And so you can see this. I can go back, and if it'll fit, I can make the text. Yeah, see, the text gets big enough that it's you can't read it as well.
Yep.
Right. So it tries to go there. That you can read that pretty well. Now, and you'll notice the way I built this data is I made every taste in level 3 a value of 1.
Yep, you did.
So it made every pie slice on the outside layer exactly the same size.
Yep.
And then it did the math to figure out how big is fruit, how big is aromatic, how big is candy tastes, or all these other ones. It's just adding that data up as you go to these higher level category groupings.
Your version makes so much more sense to my brain because of the calculations that Excel did automatically.
You'll notice on the inner side, on the very inner level here, fruit and floral is a bigger category than grain because it has more flavors.
Yep.
The offset to that might be, well, it doesn't mean you're going to taste more fruit in whiskey than grain.
Nope.
And that's why I think whoever designed the bourbon flavor wheel wanted to force those to be equal because they have equal opportunity to be flavors in whatever whiskey you're tasting.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
Trade-off.
Someone could look at this and go, oh my God, I'm definitely going to taste fruit because it's such a big category. And it almost creates a hierarchy in your brain for this. And so that makes sense. I get that now. I was kind of judging. I was kind of judging the designer. I'm like, dude, or dudette, are you being lazy? Like, why did you not? But what you're saying is they forced it because there's no flavor greater or equal or less than.
So even though I made all these outer flavors equal, which I think because they have equal opportunity to be a taste that you find in any particular bourbon, it makes these categories offset, right? Unequal, right?
Yep.
Now, we could force them to be equal, right? So if I go back to the data, right, and change the values of the level 3 tastes.
Yep.
And what I've done here is I've calculated what does it take to make every level 1 category exactly the same.
Yep.
And do the same thing here, right? So we go down here, select all the data. Make sure I get all the data. There we go. Sunburst, right? So this one, I didn't want to do that. Let's put it up here. Right, so now this one, the center 5 are equal, like in the other one, and it automatically sized these outside ones to make sure that they fill the space of these inner ones. Right, so these grain tastes are bigger than all these fruit floral tastes because they had to make up 1/5 of the entire pie chart.
Yep. Got it.
Now, saying that, if we go back to the original, right? Let's bring the original back. This one isn't quite as simple as that because you'll notice in grain, spicy and sweet aren't equal weighted.
No, they're not.
And even under the grainy sweet category, the three flavors, corn, wheat, and malt, aren't equal weighted. And
Nope.
it makes you think there's some reason for that, some data behind that. I have no idea. I don't know why you'd have that unbalance. Because if you did it in Excel, corn, wheat, and malt would be identical because you would have made them the same value.
So if you reverse engineered this person probably just said, okay, I've got this many categories and I have five in the center, I've got 10 on the outside, and then I have 45 on the outer ring.
Right.
And they may have just designed this to fit what they had versus starting with Excel to do all the appropriate calculations
It
for
could
you.
have been. If I'm eyeballing this and just making pure speculation,
Yeah.
it looks like there used to be three categories in grain: rye,
Yep.
malt, and then or maybe corn or wheat. And they
Yep.
broke that into two because rye and malt looked to be about the same size. And so the designer just broke that one into two categories.
Excellent.
But
And to be fair to the designer's goal was I want to get something interesting in front of the user that they're going to try to find different flavors. And what I like about this, it feels like it's the bottom of a whiskey glass.
yeah,
I,
it's got
I,
that whiskey color, right?
Absolutely, and it's so I think this is a great tool to communicate all the different categories. And yes, we can splice and dice it and criticize it till the cows come home, but ultimately, I think this does the job that the designer intended to do. Now you are Mr. Cool Infographic, and you have infinite knowledge on charts and data viz and all things coming to data visualization. Are there any
Way
sunburst
to build it
charts?
up.
Are there any sunburst charts that you feel you know that are better than this? I know we saw some other examples, but is there any other examples that you wanted to show that is kind of like the peak of what a sunburst chart is?
I would say, at least in this use of a sunburst, right? In the idea of you're trying to communicate information,
Yep.
not data.
Yep.
I like things to be numerically perfect, right? I'm an engineer, but
Yeah.
in the infographics world, there is a level or a point at which you say, this does the job, right?
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah,
tasting
totally.
whiskey, this does the job. Like,
Yep.
does it bug me that these pie slices are different sizes? Yes, it does bug me. But as we showed in the Excel example, you have to make a trade-off. Are these inner categories different sizes because you have different number of flavors and fruit and floral suddenly becomes this big category? Or
Yep.
do you want the inner categories to say, yeah, you can taste any of these 5 sections and here's what you might taste?
Got it. Got it.
I want to show you one other example of a
Okay.
bourbon flavor wheel specifically.
Okay. Do you think this will make me want bourbon more or less?
Let's find out. So let's hide this one. Okay. So this
more.
This
Makes me want bourbon more.
So
Thank
this
you.
is a bourbon flavor wheel specific to a very unique bourbon, right? This is one of Woodford Reserve's bourbons. And you'll notice it doesn't have all those choices on the outside.
Nope.
It's saying in these 5 categories, these are the notes, the flavor notes you should taste in each of these 5 categories. And honestly, this is a 1-level sunburst. This is a pie chart, right? They got fun with some photos, right? In here, in each of the categories. And instead of making sized slices, like as a second level, they just put the names of, in this case, the sweets, right? Marzipan, brown sugar, vanilla, and caramel. They just put them in there. They didn't try to make them sizes with the sunburst diagram.
Got it. But I still think that this looks like a sunburst to me, but it's just a creative use of sunburst where they're like, on the inner ring, we're going to call out what bourbon this is. This is a very specific bottle of bourbon. Then on the second level, it's actually photos that elicit the ideas that they're communicating on the outer ring of the sunburst. So I argue that this is actually sunburst rather than a pie chart because of the multiple layers. Or challenge me on that.
The photos, I think, are just a design element or a design aspect
Okay.
for those pie slices.
Sure.
The names of the flavors that you should be tasting in each category is another level of information,
Got
right? So
it.
you could say that's the second level of information in each of these pie slices. It just doesn't visualize them as slices around the pie
Yep.
or around
It
the
just kind of
sunburst.
lists them out.
Right. Now it can get really complicated, right? There's some really famous, popular ones that are not whiskey or
Yeah.
bourbon, right?
Yeah.
Right. Here's a poster by Pop Tart Lab, which are cheese wheels, right? They call it a cheese wheel. It's a wheel. It's a
Uh,
sunburst
so
wheel.
so so for those of us that don't know Pop Chart, I love Pop Chart, by the way.
Yeah.
Like Pop Chart, I could actually buy this if I
Yeah.
wanted
So
to.
Pop Chart is an infographic poster company out of New York. And they've been putting out posters for more than 10 years now. And they have just an immense number of different categories. So you can go to Pop Tart Lab and you can see all their posters. This is one where in the sunburst, there are different types of cheese, right? Goat cheese, sheep cheese, cow cheese.
Yep.
And then you break that out into a farther level, soft cheeses, semi-soft, that type of thing. And then the third level are all the specific cheese names that fit into that category. And this, like the bourbon flavor wheel, is not visualizing information other than maybe the quantity of cheeses, but I know that there are hundreds of cheeses and they didn't visualize them all on this chart. These are probably just, the most popular cheese types.
Now, if I'm honest, I would consider myself a data geek. And I love things like this. And I love Pop Chart because I've actually purchased gifts for people because they have wonderful scratch off infographics
Yep.
for every I'm a big baseball fan, right? The World Series is actually going on right now, and I purchased for my brother and my dad the scratch off for the MLB park. So you go to any MLB park and you can scratch them off.
Scratch off
So
that you visited.
Pop Chart is not sponsoring us, but it is a great
Yeah,
site,
right.
especially
It is
as
a
we're
great
going
site.
into holiday season. For you data geeks out there like myself that might want an interesting gift for the loved ones in your life, for your friends.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I always love asking you this when we discuss just, you know, charts and graphics. I always ask you this. Would you yourself as a
Okay.
designer, as the owner of InfoNewt, would you redesign that and make it better?
I would, but it'd be small tweaks. You're talking about redesigning the original bourbon one, right? So
Yeah.
not this one, but the bourbon wheel, right? So
Although now I want
given
cheese.
this, if this was my project,
Yes.
right, would I design it? Yes, I would redesign it. I would make these category separations a little bit more distinct. And I kind of like the one where the outer tastes are all the same size, right? Because all these tastes on the level 3, the outermost part of the sunburst diagram, have equal opportunity to be a taste that you taste and can recognize when you're tasting a bourbon.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And final question on the sunburst chart.
Okay.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love sunburst charts?
I'd say maybe a 7.
Ah,
I
okay.
like sunburst charts, but
Okay.
they have a very specific use. Like you said, the data has to be right to use a sunburst chart.
Got it. Okay.
If you're
I like-
doing a report, if you're doing a presentation, right, and this is your aspect ratio for a slide you have in a presentation, this is a great way to take a lot of information and fit it into that size without it being, like you said earlier, like a long bullet list. I'm having to
Yep.
scroll through all that text.
And so obviously this is a new project of yours, Randy, doing what we're doing right now. There is a community of data geeks and nerds like you and I
Mhm.
that are on Cool Infographics email list, right? We've been fans of the site for years. This is kind of like the new iteration of the site, if you will. So, are you wanting people who are a part of the community to send you infographics in the wild to you so that you can digest them and we can do a show on each one of those? How are you wanting to find infographics in the wild?
Well, number one, I have a bunch. I run into it all the time. But
Yeah,
yes, right. I would love for people who have photos that they find an infographic at the subway station or in the grocery store or at Disneyland, or something like that. Take that photo and use the submission page at Cool Infographics, the contact page there, to send us one of your infographics in the wild. And I think we will address a lot of infographics in the wild on this show, and pick some of the ones that make sense. And like this one, if we can, show you how to make it, show you some other examples, and talk about how that visualization works or doesn't work.
got it. I love that. And something that I learned today too is I never would have, obviously, you know me, Randy. I come from more of a design background. I do not necessarily come from a data background where you are an engineer by trade. So data is natural to you. And you're like, yes, I work in Excel. I love to work in Excel because it organizes all the information for me. Me, on the ADHD side of things and the creative side of things, I like to go in and I like to start creating the pies before I start doing the calculations, which exactly for those of you who are listening, he just did the biggest face palm because we are two very different types of data geeks, but we look at these things similarly, but also approach them very, very differently.
Yeah.
And so,
The best designs marry both, right? Because number one, the primary goal of a visualization is to communicate that data, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
We also like it to be good to look at. We like it to be aesthetically pleasing, right? But
yep,
where things go wrong, and we'll talk about some of these in the future, where things go wrong is when you try to make it pleasing to look at, you lose the accuracy of visualizing the data or communicating the data, and that's where things go off the rails. Here, with the bourbon flavor wheel, I think it does the job. I think it communicates the data.
yeah, yeah.
I think there are some minor tweaks I would make if I were doing it differently, but for the most part, this is really good.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. I get that. Well, now it's time for my favorite part of conversations with Randy, conversations with you about data, which is what are your cool picks for this week? Like what are you excited about? And you know, what are you looking forward to?
We always want to try to pick a couple things, and they can be books, they could be tools we use, they could
Sure.
be videos we watch, whatever. So, what I want to show you, and I meant to show this earlier in the video, so maybe when we do this again, I want to show you a website. So my pick
Yep.
this week is a website,
Yep.
and it's called the Data Visualization Catalog. And so
Oh,
this is a personal website designed by Severino Rebecca. I should know that. And the tool here is meant to help you find what visualization goes with your data, right?
Interesting.
And so you can use this search button here.
Yep.
And he's got, I don't know, 80 or 100 different chart types. I can,
Wow.
as you scroll down, there's a whole
I
bunch
had
of
no
them.
idea this existed. How long have we known each other? And now you're
Yeah.
sharing this with me?
So if I search by function, right, I can say I've got hierarchy data like we just worked with.
Yeah.
Right. And it will reduce that list to only the charts that work with that kind of data.
That's nice.
Right. And we got circle packing, sunburst diagrams, which is what we were talking about, a tree diagram or a tree map. And so if I go
This is
into any
interesting.
one of these.
So if I'm doing a presentation and I've got a bunch of data and I'm like, I'm tired of just doing the bar charts.
Yeah, this is how you find a different way, because people do get numb to repetitive charts. You don't want to have a report that has 100 bar charts in it, because people will just become numb
Boring.
to it.
Yeah. They're like,
So, but
oh, what page
if
are we
you
on?
click in on any of these charts, what he's done is created one landing page per
Wow.
chart that gives you an anatomy and a description of what it's used for, And then down here, if you go down to the bottom, here's a whole list of different data viz tools that you can use to make a Sunburst chart.
Okay. So what for the listeners, what is this website again?
Okay. The website is the Data Visualization Catalog.
So I Google
the website
data visualization
datavizcatalog.com.
Datavizcatalog.com. And this costs money?
No, this is free.
Wow.
So this is just a free resource for whatever of these different kinds of charts you want to go look at.
So this is the head data geek. This is the head data geek on the internet who loves data so much that
he just decided, I'm going to go build this because it doesn't exist.
I'm going to do this. Yes, because I love data. And people, and you and I both know this, people communicate data wrong all of the time.
Wrong chart type to be used for the data they're trying to communicate.
I mean, we were talking about government graphics. We're talking about presentations.
News graphics.
Oh, yeah, that's your favorite. We're going to have to get into that.
Data journalism. Yep.
Data journalism. When data journalism goes wrong, that's a whole nother show.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so that's my pick this week is the datavizcatalog.com, which is just a fabulous free resource that everybody should have a bookmark to.
Yep. And my pick this week is Bullet Bourbon.
Bring in Bullet.
When I do, if you need a fine, well, bourbon, Bullet is an excellent choice. And here's a good question: what makes bourbon bourbon? Do you know the answer to that, Randy?
I do know the answer to that. There are some very specific regulations on what makes bourbon a bourbon. Right.
Okay.
Number one, it has to be made in America.
Okay. So similar to tequila cannot be made anywhere else other than a certain region of Mexico.
Champagne can only be made in France.
Yep.
Bourbon can only be made in the US. Number two, to be a bourbon, which is a subset of whiskey.
Yep.
To be a bourbon, it has to be more than 50% corn is the grain they use to make the initial alcohol.
So 50.1% corn or 55% corn, but never 49% corn.
But never 49.9. Then it's just a whiskey. It's not a bourbon.
Wow.
And the third thing is it has to be aged in brand new charred oak barrels. You can't make a bourbon with a used barrel.
Oh, got it.
Okay. Now, like rum, for example, you can use whatever barrel you want. You can use used whiskey barrels. You can use used wine barrels. You can use whatever. To be a bourbon, it has to be in a new charred oak barrel.
This makes sense on why there are so many bourbon aged barrel beers. Because what are you going to do once you use the barrel?
Yes. So there's a whole market for what do you do with these barrels, right?
Yeah.
And so you can have rum that is then finished in a bourbon cask, or a barrel, right? Or you can have wine, like I've got a couple red wines that are finished in bourbon barrels, or beers, right?
Yeah.
There are stout beers finished in bourbon barrels that are fantastic.
Now, the notes I'm getting from this one is definitely sweet. Yep.
Take a swig.
Yep. I'm tasting the corn.
Yep.
Wait, can you pull? Let's pull up that bourbon
here we
wheel
go.
again. Right. Let me see what I'm tasting here. Okay, all right, and maybe a little.
Any wood. So start with the wood. Any wood scents, because sometimes you'll smell it and not taste it.
I'm going to say walnut. I'm going to say walnut and toasted oak. I really like that word, toasted oak. That is perfect. And
well, then your nose works better than mine because I wouldn't be able to pick that out.
But honestly, like Bullet Bourbon is under $30, and it's a decent sipping bourbon. I don't know. For those of you that are listening, please send your bourbon recommendations. No worries. And cut.
So I can add it to.
Or you say, Jared, I thought we were picking Dataviz stuff, and you pick booze. Yes, Randy. I always pick booze.
Wait a minute. I need a bourbon pick too. Then.
Yes, and so then you run and you make the little noise. Then you come back. Here's my bourbon.
Stand by.
Well, that's the great thing about you is you're always going to be able to one up me because again, I'm the everyman, right? I'm like Bullet Bourbon, $30. fuck
30
yeah.
bucks. No,
And
no.
you're like, oh,
Woodinville, made
trust me.
outside of Seattle,
Yeah,
Washington.
exactly. Okay. All right.
And then we can say, okay, well, I'm going to pick Woodinville finished with applewood staves. And what that means is, a stave is a charred stick of wood, a piece of wood. So
Yep.
once they've already aged it in bourbon barrels, they then took specifically applewood, charred, and put it into the mix and let it sit in there to add flavor.
But here's the other thing too. You busted a myth for me about bourbon. I thought bourbon can only be made in Kentucky.
Yeah, no, and you should say that, right? And say, no, Kentucky does a great job of it. And most of the bourbon whiskey companies are there, but the
Yep.
regulation for a bourbon is US. It's got to be US made. So, for example,
Yeah.
Crown Royale
Yeah, that is a Canadian whiskey.
is a Canadian whiskey. Technically, it meets all the standards of a bourbon, except it's made in Canada.
It is
So
made
we
in
have to
Canada.
call it a Canadian whiskey. They can't call it a bourbon.
But you know what? They have one up because you can order a Crown and Coke and that just rolls off the tongue versus
Yeah.
I'm going to order a bourbon and Coke and people are going to be like, "What? Why would you want that? Why are you going to ruin the bourbon?" Right? But Crown and
And
Coke is excellent.
to be specific, I need to correct myself. It's 51% corn, not over 50. It's got to be 51%
Oh
corn.
yeah, because I said 50.1. You're like, yes, but it's
Yeah, it's not.
51%.
It's 51 or higher.